For nearly 250 years, a handful of moments have defined the American story. A bell that became a symbol of liberty, a document that declared independence, a desperate crossing through an icy river, and a group of leaders willing to risk everything for an idea. These events helped transform 13 colonies into a new nation, but before there could be independence, there first had to be conflict. For much of the 18th century, the American colonies remained under British rule. Many colonists considered themselves loyal subjects of the British Crown. They spoke English, traded with Britain, and shared many of the same traditions. But following the French and Indian War, Britain found itself burdened with significant debt. To help pay those expenses, the British government imposed new taxes and regulations on the colonies. Measures such as the Stamp Act and Townshend Acts proved deeply unpopular. Many colonists believed decisions affecting their lives were being made by a government thousands of miles away. The phrase, "no taxation without representation," became a rallying cry throughout the colonies. As tensions increased, protests spread across America. Events such as the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party further deepened the divide. What had begun as political disagreement gradually evolved into something larger, a growing belief that the colonies should govern themselves. Eventually, words gave way to action. In April of 1775, fighting broke out at Lexington and Concord. The American Revolutionary War had begun. Colonial militias found themselves facing one of the most powerful military forces in the world. To coordinate the war effort, the colonies formed the Continental Army and selected George Washington as its commander. At first, many Americans still hoped the conflict could be resolved without complete separation from Britain. But as the war continued, support for independence grew. Many colonists came to believe that true freedom could only be achieved through self-government. On July 4, 1776, delegates gathered in Philadelphia approved a document that would alter history forever. The Declaration of Independence. Written primarily by Thomas Jefferson, the Declaration announced that the colonies no longer recognized British authority. They considered themselves free and independent states. The Declaration was more than a political statement. It was a bold assertion that governments derive their power from the consent of the governed. Its words inspired generations of Americans and influenced democratic movements around the world. Yet signing the Declaration did not guarantee victory. The war would continue for years. The survival of the new nation remained uncertain, and the greatest challenges still lay ahead. The Declaration of Independence. Silver Bar pays tribute to that historic moment, preserving one of America's most important symbols in precious metal form. Its words continue to represent the ideals of liberty and self-government that helped shape the United States. The Declaration represented more than words on parchment. It reflected the vision of a remarkable generation. Today, Americans often hear the term Founding Fathers, but who were they? The Founding Fathers were the political leaders, thinkers, soldiers, and statesmen who helped create the United States during the Revolutionary era. They did not all agree on every issue. In fact, many of them frequently debated one another. Yet they shared a common belief that the colonies should govern themselves and determine their own future. Among the most recognized was George Washington. As commander of the Continental Army, Washington led American forces throughout the Revolutionary War. His leadership helped keep the cause alive during some of its darkest moments, and his example would later make him the nation's first president. Thomas Jefferson played a different role. A gifted writer and political thinker, Jefferson drafted much of the Declaration of Independence, helping articulate the principles upon which the new nation would be founded. Benjamin Franklin was one of the most respected figures in the colonies, an inventor, diplomat, and statesman. Franklin helped secure critical support from France during the war, assistance that proved essential to the American victory. John Adams became one of independence's strongest advocates. long before many colonists supported separation from Great Britain. Adams argued that the colonies should chart their own course. Alexander Hamilton represented a younger generation of leaders. After the Revolution, Hamilton helped establish the nation's financial system and played a key role in shaping the American economy. Together, these men and many others helped guide the colonies through one of the most important periods in American history. They organized governments, negotiated alliances, led armies, drafted laws, and laid the foundations for a nation that was still taking shape. Their decisions would influence the country's political system, economy, and identity for generations to come. Many of the freedoms Americans enjoy today can be traced back to the principles they championed during the nation's earliest years. Though they were not perfect, their ideas and actions helped shape the United States and continue to influence the nation nearly 250 years later. Their legacy can still be seen in the institutions they helped create and the freedoms they fought to secure. The Founding Fathers Silver Bar commemorates the individuals whose leadership helped guide a young nation through its earliest and most uncertain years. Yet declaring independence was only the beginning. The survival of the Revolution remained uncertain. By late 1776, the Continental Army faced defeat. Morale was low, supplies were scarce. Many soldiers prepared to leave when their enlistments expired. British forces had driven American troops from New York. The future of the Revolution appeared increasingly bleak. Then came one of the most daring decisions of the war. On Christmas night of 1776, George Washington led his army across the icy Delaware River. Battling freezing temperatures, snow, strong currents, and dangerous conditions, the force crossed into New Jersey under cover of darkness. The mission was risky. Failure could have devastated the American cause, but Washington understood that bold action was necessary. After completing the crossing, American forces marched toward Trenton. Their target was a garrison of Hessian soldiers allied with the British. The surprise attack that followed delivered a critical victory. More importantly, it restored confidence. The victory demonstrated that the Continental Army could still fight. It revived morale among soldiers and supporters alike. Many historians consider the crossing of the Delaware one of the most important turning points of the Revolutionary War. It became a symbol of perseverance, courage, and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. The war would continue for several more years, but Washington's daring gamble helped keep the dream of independence alive. The crossing of the Delaware remains one of the defining images of the American Revolution. On a freezing December night in 1776, George Washington led his army across the icy river in a daring gamble that helped change the course of the war. That historic moment is now commemorated on the Crossing the Delaware Silver Bar. While battles were fought on distant fields, another symbol was quietly becoming part of the American story: the Liberty Bell. Today, it is recognized around the world as a symbol of freedom and independence. But originally, it served a very different purpose. The bell was commissioned in the mid-18th century for the Pennsylvania State House, the building now known as Independence Hall in Philadelphia. At the time, public bells played an important role in everyday life. Long before telephones, radios, or television, bells were used to communicate important information to the public. They called lawmakers to meetings, announced public gatherings, marked important events, and alerted citizens to significant news. The Liberty Bell became a familiar sound throughout colonial Philadelphia. Its famous inscription reads, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." The words came from the book of Leviticus and reflected themes of freedom and justice. At the time the bell was created, no one could have known how closely those words would one day become associated with the American struggle for independence. As tensions between Britain and the colonies grew, Philadelphia became one of the most important cities in America. It was here that delegates gathered to debate the future of the colonies. It was here that the Continental Congress met. And it was here that the Declaration of Independence was approved in 1776. Although historians continue to debate exactly when the bell was rung in connection with the Declaration, its association with American independence grew steadily over time. As the Revolution unfolded, the bell became increasingly linked to the cause of liberty. Over the decades that followed, the Liberty Bell transformed from a practical civic tool into a powerful national symbol. Its image appeared in newspapers, books, artwork, and patriotic celebrations throughout the country. Generations of Americans came to view the bell as a representation of freedom, self-government, and the ideals upon which the nation was founded. At some point during its long history, the bell developed the famous crack that remains visible today. Ironically, what might have been considered a flaw became one of its most recognizable features. The crack serves as a reminder that the nation's journey has never been perfect, but that its ideals continue to endure. Today, millions of visitors travel to Philadelphia to see the Liberty Bell each year, not because it is the largest bell ever cast, or the most ornate, but because of what it represents, a lasting symbol of American independence, a reminder of the sacrifices made during the nation's founding, and a connection to the ideals that helped shape the United States. Few symbols are more closely associated with American freedom than the Liberty Bell. The Liberty Bell silver bar celebrates that enduring symbol and its place in American history. Nearly 250 years later, these events continue to resonate. The Declaration of Independence, the courage displayed during the crossing of the Delaware, the leadership of the Founding Fathers, and the enduring symbolism of the Liberty Bell. Together, they tell the story of a nation born through determination and sacrifice, a nation built upon ideas that continue to shape its identity today. Their stories remain relevant because they speak to universal themes: liberty, self-government, perseverance, and the belief that ordinary people can shape the future of their country. 4 symbols, 4 chapters, 1 story, the story of American independence, a story of courage, a story of conviction, and a story that continues nearly 2.5 centuries later. These moments helped shape a nation, and their legacy continues more than 2 centuries later.